Hey, I'm Hannah. Welcome back to Twilight Rewrite, where we are rewriting the Twilight books to make them a little bit better. We're on chapter 5 if you want to catch up on the first 4. There's a playlist. And if you want to read the edited chapters, I send them out every time as I finish them in my newsletters, but I'm about to send out the first 5 because I need to go back and change Eric to Erica because we did that a few videos ago for flavor and spice. So I'm going to compile all of those and send them out. So if you missed the first ones, don't worry, you have time. Sign up link is in my description. Let's get started. Chapter 5, Blood Type. Ooh, is it gonna get spicy now? I doubt it. I made my way to English in a daze. I didn't even realize when I first walked in that class had already started. Thank you for joining us, Miss Swan, Mr. Mason said in a disparaging tone. I flushed and hurried to my seat. It wasn't until class ended that I realized Mike wasn't sitting in his usual seat next to me. She went the whole class and didn't notice Mike was gone. I felt a twinge of guilt, but he and Erica both met me at the door as usual, so figured I wasn't totally unforgiven. Mike seemed to become more himself as we walked, gaining enthusiasm as he talked about the weather report for this weekend. The rain was supposed to take a minor break, so maybe his beach trip would be possible. They've been talking about this beach trip for like since chapter 1, maybe chapter 2. Can they go already? This timeline doesn't make sense. Because when they were talking about it, they were like, we're gonna go in a few weeks. And I thought it was weird that they were planning so far ahead. But months have passed. Mike is just not very good at executing plans. I tried to sound eager to make up for disappointing him yesterday. Shut up. It was hard, rain or no rain, it would still be in the high 40s if we were lucky. The rest of the morning passed in a blur. It was difficult to believe that I hadn't just imagined what Edward had said and the way his eyes had looked. Maybe it was just a very convincing dream that I had confused with reality. It seemed more probable than that I really appealed to him on any level. Shut up. Let's see. I don't remember what happened last chapter because it was incredibly unimpactful. He offered to drive her to Seattle and then told her, but you should stay away from me. I hate him. The rest of the morning passed in a blur. It's difficult to believe, blah, 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 blah. Maybe it's just... I don't like that because I don't like that she cares about him. So I was impatient and frightened as Jessica and I entered the cafeteria. I wanted to see his face to see if he'd gone back to the cold and different person I'd known for the last several weeks, or if by some miracle I'd really heard what I thought I'd heard this morning. Jessica babbled on about her dance plans. Okay. Jessica walked with me to the cafeteria, babbling about her dance plans. Lauren and Angela had asked the other boys, and they were all going together, completely unaware of my inattention. Disappointment flooded through me as my eyes unerringly focused on Edward's table. The other 4 were there, but he was absent. Had he gone home? I followed the still babbling Jessica through the line, crushed. You don't have to be so mean to Jessica. Followed Jessica through the line, crushed. I lost my appetite. I bought nothing but a bottle of lemonade. I just wanted to go sit down and sulk. Edward Cullen is staring at you again, Jessica said, finally breaking through my abstraction with his name. Abstraction? Hey, Sam.
Yeah.
What do you know about the word abstraction?
You know, abstract something.
Edward Cullen is staring at you again, Jessica said, finally breaking through my abstraction with his name.
Oh. I guess a person could be abstracted. If she's like off in an abstract space. I mean, it's an abstraction.
What if I just say Jessica said? Edward Cullen is staring at you again, Jessica said. I wonder why he's sitting alone today. My head snapped up. I followed her gaze to see Edward, smiling crookedly, staring at me from an empty table across the cafeteria where he usually... Staring at me from an empty table on the other side of the room. Once he'd caught my eye, he raised one hand and motioned with his index finger for me to join him. I stared in disbelief. He winked. Does he mean you? Jessica asked with insulting astonishment in her voice. Maybe he needs help with his biology homework, I muttered for her benefit. I'd better go see what he wants. You don't have to. Like, honestly. I could feel her staring after me as I walked away. When I reached his table, I stood behind the chair across from him, unsure. Why don't you sit with me today? He asked, smiling. He is so insistent that she should leave him alone. But he keeps inviting her to hang out. Why are you in high school at all? Let's start there. I sat down automatically, watching him with caution. She uses the word automatically so much. I sat down, watching him with caution. He was still smiling. It was hard to believe that someone so beautiful could be real. I was afraid that he might disappear in a sudden puff of smoke and I would wake up, okay? He seemed to be waiting for me to say something. This is different, I finally managed. Well, he paused, and then the rest of the words followed in a rush. I decided as long as I was going to hell, I might as well do it thoroughly. Sir. Okay. I waited for him to say something that made sense. The seconds ticked by. You know, I don't have any idea what you mean, I eventually pointed out. What? The word plopped onto the table between us. And he left it there. I just think we could put a little Marcus Zusak sprinkle. I just think it's nice. I know, he smiled again, and then he changed the subject. And then, I'm gonna take that out. I think your friends are angry with me for stealing you. They'll survive. I could feel their stares boring into my back. I may not give you back, though. I'm gonna put boring into me or into my scalp or something, because he says back immediately after. And last video, we talked about the unintentional repetition and how it sounds awkward. May not give you back, though, he said with a wicked glint in his eyes. I gulped. He laughed. You look worried. Yeah. No, I said, but ridiculously, my voice broke. Surprised, actually. What brought all this on? I told you, I got tired of trying to stay away from you, so I'm giving up. Isn't it like a life or death situation for her? Like he wants to kill her. And he's like, I'm just gonna give into that. Okay. He was still smiling, but his ochre eyes were serious. Giving up? I repeated in confusion. Yes. Giving up trying to be good. I'm just going to do what I want now and let the chips fall where they may. His smile faded as he explained, and a hard edge crept into his voice. You lost me again. Girl, just get up and leave. The breathtaking, crooked smile reappeared. I'm gonna take that out because I don't like it. You don't say too much when I'm talking to you. That's one of the problems. Don't worry, I don't understand any of it, I said right. What? Oh, you always say too much when I always say, oh my god, I read that sentence wrong 4 times. Okay. You lost me again. I always say too much when I'm talking to you. That's one of the problems. Don't worry, I don't understand any of it, I said wryly. I'm counting on that. So, in plain English, are we friends now? Friends, he mused, dubious. Or not, I muttered. Why would she want to be his friend? I kind of want to write a scene where she rejects him. He grinned. Well, we can try, I suppose, but I'm warning you now that I'm not a good friend for you. Behind his smile, the warning is real. Okay, I said, standing. See you never. Wait, he half stood. Where are you going? Why would I be friends with someone who's warning me not to? That seems pretty stupid. Well, he straightened the collar of his shirt. You're not listening to me. I'm still waiting for you to believe it. If you're smart, you'll avoid me. Got it, I said, turning. Wait, he called again. You don't want to hang out? I think I'm gonna listen, I said. I stomped the few steps back to his table and pressed my fingers into it, leaning toward him. I'm trying to figure out what you are. Tell me, and maybe we can finish this conversation. I just want her to be incredibly aggressive the whole time. He chuckled. What are your theories? Oh God, now it doesn't fit. You can't blush now, Bella. We're being aggressive. Bruce Wayne and Peter Parker. Now, why don't you just tell me? No, I want her to say this. I snapped. It's really frustrating, you know, he complained. No, I disagreed quickly, my eyes narrowing. I can't imagine why that would be frustrating at all, just because someone refuses to tell you what they're thinking. Even if all the while you're making cryptic little remarks specifically designed to keep you up. Tell me what you think I am. This is really frustrating. He rolled his eyes. Let's make him act as petty and stupid as he is. Now, why would that be frustrating? He grimaced. Or better, I continued. Yes, Queen, get him. The pent-up annoyance flowing freely now, it was earlier. Better, I continued. Say that person also did a wide range of bizarre things, from saving your life under impossible circumstances one day to treating you like a pariah the next. And he never explained any of that either, even after he promised. That also would be very non-frustrating. You've got a bit of a temper, don't you? I don't like double standards. Bitch, get him. We stared at each other, unsmiling. He glanced over my shoulder, and then unexpectedly he snickered. I can't stand him. What? Your boyfriend seems to think I'm being unpleasant to you. He's debating whether or not to come break up our fight. He snickered again. No, you only get to snicker once, Edward. Shut up. I don't know who you're talking about, I said frostily, but I'm sure you're wrong anyway. I'm not. I told you most people are easy to read. Except me, of course. Yes, except for you. His mood shifted suddenly. His eyes turned brooding. I wonder why that is. I had to look away from the intensity of his stare. I concentrated on unscrewing the lid of my lemonade. I took a swig, staring at the table without seeing it. Aren't you hungry? He asked. No. I didn't feel like mentioning that my stomach was already full of butterflies. Okay, shut up. You? I looked at the empty table in front of him. No, I'm not hungry. I didn't understand his expression. It looked like he was enjoying some private joke. Can you do me a favor? I asked after a second of hesitation. He was suddenly wary. That's a little perspective switch because there's no way for her to know that he's wary. Depends on what you want. It's not much, I assured him. He waited, guarded but curious. Again, she doesn't know that. I just wondered, if you could warn me beforehand the next time you decide to ignore me for my own good, just so I'm prepared. I looked at the lemonade bottle as I spoke, tracing the circle of the opening with my pinky finger. That sounds fair. He was pressing his lips together to keep from laughing when I looked up. Why? Thanks. Why is he such a prick? Then can I have one answer in return? He demanded. What? 1. Tell me one theory. Whoops. Not that one. You didn't qualify, you just promised one answer, he reminded me. And you've broken promises yourself, I reminded him back. Just one theory, I won't laugh. I can't stand him. Yes, you will. I was positive about that. He looked down and then glanced up at me through his long black lashes. Oh my god. Ew, please, he breathed, leaning toward me. Get away. Stop. I blinked, my mind going blank. Holy cow, how did you do that? What? I asked, dazed. Please just tell me one little theory. His eyes still smoldered at me. Okay. Well, bitten by a radioactive spider? Was he a hypnotist too, or was I just a hopeless pushover? That's not very creative, he scoffed. Sorry, that's all I got, I said, miffed. You're not even close, he teased. Is this supposed to be, like, engaging? Is this supposed to be fun to read? No spiders? Nope. And no radioactivity? None. Dang, I sighed. Kryptonite doesn't bother me either, he chuckled. You're not supposed to laugh, remember? He struggled to compose his face. I'll figure it out eventually, I warned him. I wish you wouldn't try, he was serious again. Well, then don't hang out with her. Because... why's there space? What if I'm not a superhero? What if I'm the bad guy? He smiled playfully, but his eyes were impenetrable. Oh, I'll penetrate. Oh, I said as several things he'd hinted fell suddenly into place. I see. What? Do you? His face was abruptly severe, as if he were afraid he'd accidentally said too much. You're dangerous, I guessed, my pulse quickening as I intuitively realized the truth of my own words. He was dangerous. He'd been trying to tell me that all along. He directly said, hey, not a good idea to hang out with me. What did you think he meant, babe? That he was super cool? I don't care about any of this. I kind of want to cut the whole scene. Let's just skim. But not bad, I whispered, shaking my head. No, I don't believe you're bad. You're wrong. His voice was almost inaudible. He looked down, stealing my bottle lid and spinning it. Oh, we're going to be late. I'm not going to class today. Why not? It's healthy to ditch class now and then. Well, I'm going, I told him. I'll see you later. I hesitated, torn. The half ran to class. My head was spinning faster than the bottle cap. So few questions had been answered. Blah, 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 blah. Okay, so I'm going to cut most of that. Okay, so what I'm going to do is delete that. What if I'm the bad guy? I rolled my eyes so hard it hurt. You're so annoying. I shoved my chair out and walked back to my friends. Shut up, Edward. He wasn't in biology, so I guessed he'd ditched. Whatever. I was lucky Mr. Banner wasn't in the room yet when I arrived. Why were you late? So quickly into my seat, aware that both Mike and Angela were staring at me. Mike looked resentful, Angela looked surprised and slightly awed, and walked away, so I won't specify that she went back to her friends. Mr. Banner came into the room then, calling the class to order. He was juggling a few small cardboard boxes in his arms. He put them down on Mike's table, I'm gonna take that down, telling him to pass them around the class. Okay, guys, I want you all to take one piece from each box, he said as he produced a pair of rubber gloves from the pocket of his lab jacket and pulled them on. The sharp sound as the gloves snapped into place against his wrists seemed ominous. The first should be an indicator card, he went on, grabbing a white card with 4 squares marked on it and displaying the second. The second is a 4-pronged applicator. He held up something that looked like a nearly toothless hair pick. And the third is a sterile micro-lancet. He held up a small piece of blue plastic and split it open. The barb was invisible from this distance, but my stomach flipped. I'll be coming around with a dropper of water to prepare your cards, so please don't start until I get to you. He began at Mike's table again, carefully putting 1 drop of water in each of the 4 squares. Then I want you to carefully prick your finger with the lancet. He grabbed Mike's hand and jabbed the spike into the tip of Mike's middle finger. Oh no, clammy moisture broke across my forehead. That doesn't seem right. Do they do that in school? How's that sanitary? He didn't even clean anything. I want you to prick your finger. Sam!
Yeah.
Did you ever have to poke your finger with a needle and study your own blood in high school?
I don't think so.
I'm worried. What's a little hepatitis between friends? Put a small drop of blood on each of the prongs, he demonstrated, squeezing Mike's finger till the blood flowed. I swallowed convulsively, my stomach heaving. This is such a liability. This is the dumbest thing I've ever heard. And then apply it to the card, he finished, holding up the dripping red card for us to see. I closed my eyes, trying to hear through the ringing in my ears. The Red Cross is having a blood drive in Port Angeles next weekend, so I thought you should all know your blood type. They could tell you at the drive. He sounded proud of himself. Those of you who aren't 18 yet will need a parent's permission. I have slips at my desk. But you don't need permission to wound them in class. He continued through the room with his water drops. I put my cheek against the cool black tabletop and tried to hold on to consciousness. I'm going to take out hold on to consciousness. All around me, I could hear squeals, complaints, and giggles as my classmates skewered their fingers. I breathed slowly in and out through my mouth. I feel like there'd be more than one child alarmed in this class. Bella, are you all right? Mr. Banner asked. His voice was close to my head and it sounded alarmed. I already know my blood type, Mr. Banner, I said in a weak voice. I was afraid to raise my hand. Are you feeling faint? Yes, sir, I muttered, internally kicking myself for not ditching when I had the chance. Can someone take Bella to the nurse? I'm going to take that out because I took out the part where Edward told her she should ditch. I didn't have to look up to know that it would be Mike who volunteered. Can you walk? Mr. Banner asked. Yes, I whispered. Just let me get out of here, I thought. I'll crawl. Mike seemed eager as he put his arm around my waist and pulled my arm over his shoulder. I leaned against him heavily on the way out of the classroom. Mike towed me slowly across campus. When we were around the edge of the cafeteria outside of building 4, in case Mr. Banner was watching, I stopped. Just let me sit for a minute, please, I begged. He helped me sit on the edge of the walk. And whatever you do, keep your hand in your pocket, I warned. I was still so dizzy. I slumped over on my side, putting my cheek against the freezing damp cement. It's concrete. Closing my eyes, that seemed to help a little. Wow, you're green, Bella, Mike said nervously. Bella? A different voice called from the distance. No, please let me be imagining that horribly familiar voice. What's wrong? Is she hurt? His voice was closer now and he sounded upset. I wasn't imagining it. It's not that... Oh my god! I hate both of them and everything that they do. I squeezed my eyes shut, hoping to die. Yeah, or at the very least, not to throw up. Mike seemed stressed. I think she's fainted. I don't know what happened. She didn't even stick her finger. Bella? Edward's voice was right beside me. Relieved now. Can you hear me? No, I groaned. Go away. He chuckled. I was taking her to the nurse, Mike explained in a defensive tone, but she wouldn't go any farther. I'll take her, Edward said. They all sound like babies. I could hear the smile still in his voice. You can go back to class. No, Mike protested. I'm supposed to do it. Suddenly, the sidewalk disappeared from beneath me. Did he pick her up? My eyes flew open in shock. Edward had scooped me up in his arms as easily as if I weighed 10 pounds instead of 100. She's 110 and he can lift her. He's so strong. I think I could hold a 110-pound person up with just like my neck on the top of my head. No hands required. She's like, oh no, I was 45 pounds. Do you lift? Put me down. Please, please let me not vomit on him. He was walking before I was finished talking. Hey, Mike called, already 10 paces behind us. Edward ignored him. You look awful, he told me, grinning. Put me back on the sidewalk, I moaned. The rocking movement of his walk was not helping. He held me away from his body, gingerly, supporting all my weight with just his arms. It didn't seem to bother him. You don't weigh anything! So you faint at the sight of blood? He asked. This seemed to entertain him. I didn't answer. I closed my eyes again and fought the nausea with all my strength, clamping my lips together. Not even your own blood, he continued, enjoying himself. I don't know how. I don't like this. Put me down, I said, firmer. I was less dizzy now. I'm gonna swap these. Edward, I shouted. What should she do to him if he's carrying her bridal style? He ignored me, so I did the first thing that occurred to me. Clamped my teeth deep into his shoulder. He grunted and dropped my legs. I landed on my feet and shoved him away. It was like biting into an ice cube. Cold, hard, flavorless. Okay, I landed on my feet and shoved him away, wiping at my mouth with the back of my hand, dreading the blood I was sure to find there. But there was none. It's like we're staying in the lore, but we're making Bella a little cooler. Hey, Sam.
Yeah.
I made her bite him.
Oh.
What do you think?
I think that's genius.
Thank you. It's a little foreshadowing. He's like, oh, I'm scared I'm gonna bite her. And she's like, ah. His hand was over his shoulder, angrily grasping it. But when it dropped away, there was no blood on his shirt either. I definitely bit deep enough to draw some. She knows from experience. She's a biter. What the fuck, Bella? Maybe don't pick up girls when they ask you not to. The dizziness was coming back in waves. I swayed, catching myself on the door. I hadn't realized we were right outside the nurse's office already. I glared at him and yanked it open. It was warm inside. Oh my, I heard a female voice gasp. I could tell by how cold my face was that I was pale, maybe yellow. Dizzy, I said to her. Fainted in biology. The room swayed and my vision darkened. She fainted in biology, Edward explained. Coming in the door behind me. I just said that, jackass. I snapped. I'm having so much fun. Maybe enemies to lovers will make this book more interesting. Miss Cope, the red-headed front office receptionist, ran ahead of him to hold it open. Wait, no. Miss Cope, the grandmotherly nurse, looked up from her novel astonished as Edward smugged me into the room and placed me gently on the crackly paper that covered the brown vinyl mattress on one cot. Then blah, 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 blah. And take that out. She's just a little faint, he reassured the startled nurse. They're blood typing in biology. The nurse nodded sagely. There's always one. They do this often? I sat on the, I already forgot, brown vinyl chair, the paper crinkling beneath me. Just lie down for a minute, honey. It'll pass. I know, I sighed. The nausea was already fading. Does this happen a lot, she asked. Sometimes, I admitted. Edward coughed to hide another. Edward shouldn't be laughing. He's gonna get bit again. You go back to class now. Actually, yeah, wait. I'm gonna leave. Edward coughed to hide a laugh. You can go back to class now, she told him. He sure can, I said. I'm supposed to stay with her. He said this was with as much assured authority that, even though she pursed her lips, the nurse didn't argue it further. I rolled my eyes. I'll get some ice for your forehead, dear, she said to me, and then bustled out of the room. You're right, I moaned, letting my eyes close. I'm gonna get rid of that, because we took out the ditching conversation anyway. You scared me for a minute there, he admitted after a pause. His tone made it sound like he was confessing a humiliating weakness. I thought Newton was dragging your dead body off to bury it in the woods. Ha ha, I still had my eyes closed, but I was feeling more normal every minute. Honestly, I've seen corpses with better color. I was concerned that I might have to avenge your murder. Poor Mike, I'll bet he's mad. He absolutely loathes me, Edward said cheerfully. He's not the only one, I bit. Get it? How did you see me? I thought you were ditching. I was almost fine now, though the queasiness would probably pass faster if I'd eaten something for lunch. On the other hand, maybe it was lucky my stomach was empty. I was in my car listening to a CD. When you're 119, such a normal response, it surprised me. I heard the door and opened my eyes to see the nurse with a cold compress in her hand. Here you go, dear, she laid it across my forehead. You're looking better, she added. I think I'm fine, I said, sitting up, just a little ringing in my ears, no spinning. The mint green walls stayed where they should. I could see she was about to make me lie back down, but the door opened just then, and Miss Cope stuck her head in. We've got another one, she warned. I hopped down to free up the cot for the next invalid. Okay, so I should make the chair a cot. I handed the compress back to the nurse. Here, I don't need this. And then Mike staggered through the door, now supporting a sallow-looking Lee Stevens, another boy in our biology class. They're in love. If Lee has another scene, they're in love. Edward and I drew back against the wall to give them room. Oh no, Edward muttered. Go out to the office, Bella. I looked at him bewildered. Trust me, go. I spun and caught the door before it closed, darting out of the infirmary. I could feel Edward right behind me. You actually listened to me, he was stunned. I smelled the blood, I said, wrinkling my nose. Lee wasn't sick from watching other people like me. People can't smell blood, he People can't smell blood, he contradicted. Well, I can. That's what makes me sick. It smells like rust and salt. He was staring at me with an unfathomable expression. What? I asked. I'm gonna take out it's nothing, because we don't apologize here. Mike came through the door then, glancing from me to Edward. The look he gave Edward confirmed what Edward had said about loathing. He looked back at me, his eyes glum. You look better, he accused. Just keep your hand in your pocket, I warned him again. It's not bleeding anymore, he muttered. Are you going back to class? Are you kidding? I just have to turn around and come back. Yeah, I guess. So are you going this weekend to the beach? While he spoke, he flashed another glare toward Edward, who was standing against the cluttered counter, motionless as a sculpture, staring off into space. I tried to sound as friendly as possible. Sure, I said I was in. We're meeting at my dad's store at 10. His eyes flickered to Edward again, wondering if he was giving too much information. She doesn't know that. His body language made it clear it wasn't an open invitation. I'll be there, I promised. I'll see you in gym then, he said, moving uncertainly toward the door. See you, I replied. He looked at me once more, his round face slightly pouting, and then as he walked through the door, his shoulders slumped. A swell of sympathy washed over me. I pondered seeing his disappointed face again, ... in gym. Okay. Gym, I groaned. I can take care of that. I hadn't noticed Edward moving to my side, but he spoke now in my ear. Go sit down and look pale, he muttered. That wasn't a challenge. I was always pale, and my recent swoon had left a slight sheen of sweat on my face. I sat in one of the creaky folding chairs and rested my head against the wall with my eyes closed. Fainting spells always exhausted me. I heard Edward speaking softly at the counter. Miss Cope? Yes, I hadn't heard her return to her desk. Bella has gym next hour, and I don't think she feels well enough. Actually, I was thinking I should take her home now. Do you think we could excuse her from class? His voice was like melting honey. I could imagine how much more overwhelming his eyes would be. I'm taking that out. Do you need to be excused too, Edward? Miss Cope fluttered. Why couldn't I do that? Wait, why couldn't I do that? Why couldn't I do what? No, I have Mrs. Goff. She won't mind. Okay, it's all taken care of. You feel better, Bella, she called to me. I nodded weakly, hamming it up just a bit. Can you walk, or do you want me to carry you again? With his back to the receptionist, his expression became sarcastic. Can you keep your hands off me, or would you like me to stab you next time? I stood carefully, and I was still fine. He held the door for me, his smile polite, but his eyes mocking. I walked out into the cold, fine mist that had just begun to fall. Okay. It felt nice, the first time I enjoyed the constant moisture falling out of the sky. As I washed my face clean of the sticky perspiration. Thanks, I said as he followed me out. It's almost worth getting sick to miss Jim. Anytime. He was staring straight forward, squinting into the rain. So are you going? This Saturday, I mean? I was hoping he would, though it seemed unlikely. I couldn't picture him loading up to carpool with the rest of the kids from school. He didn't belong in the same world, but just hoping that he might gave me the first twinge of enthusiasm I'd felt for the outing. Why? You just bit him. Where are you all going exactly? He was still looking ahead, expressionless. Down to La Push to First Beach. I studied his face, trying to read it. His eyes seemed to narrow infinitesimally. He glanced down at me from the corner of his eye, smiling wryly. I really don't think I was invited. I'm gonna take that out. Just because it's just too much. I sighed. I just invited you. Let's you and I not push our poor Mike any further this week. We don't want him to snap. His eyes danced. He was enjoying the idea more than he should. Mike Schmike, I muttered, preoccupied by the way he'd said you and I liked it more than I should. I'm gonna take that out. We were near the parking lot now. I veered left toward my truck. Something caught my jacket, yanking me back. Where do you think you're going? He asked, outraged. He was gripping a fistful of my jacket in one hand. I wasn't kidding about stabbing you, I said, hand slipping into my pocket where I kept a small knife, a gift from Dad. I probably shouldn't have it on school property, but what's the worst they'd do? Kick me out? Expel me? Oh no. I'd hate to miss out on any days at Forks High. Or maybe they'd call the police and I'd have a conversation with the chief about the knife he'd given me. Why is Twilight so much better with Bella having a knife? Didn't you hear me promise to take you safely home? Do you think I'm going to let you drive in your condition? His voice was still indignant. What condition? And what about my truck? I'll have Alice drop it off after school. He was towing me toward his car now, pulling me by my jacket. It was all I could do to keep from falling backward. He'd probably just drag me along anyway if I did. I kicked the back of his knee, causing him to jerk forward slightly, but he didn't fall. Let go, I insisted. And he did. He released his fistful of my jacket, but gently guided me toward his Volvo. You're so pushy, I grumbled. It's open, was all he responded. He got in the driver's side. I'm perfectly capable of driving myself home. I stood by the car fuming. It was raining harder now, and I'd never put my hood back up, so my hair was dripping down my back. He lowered the automatic window and leaned across the seat. Get in, Bella. Ooh. Ew. I didn't answer. I was mentally calculating my chances of reaching the truck before he could catch me. I had to admit they weren't good. I'll just drag you back, he threatened, guessing my plan. I'm gonna give her a little more agency in this. Do you have heated seats? And then maybe that'll be the end of that scene, because I think that's a funny note to end on. This is completely unnecessary, I said stiffly. Claire DeLune, I asked, surprised. You know the bussy? I don't want them bonding yet. I'm gonna take all this out. I listened to the music, relaxing against the light gray leather seat. It was impossible not to respond to the familiar soothing melody, relaxing against the warm leather seat. His car was nice, but he had shit taste in music. What should he be listening to? Is this really what you listen to? I asked in the silence, gesturing to his stereo. What's like a douchey indie song? I feel like I should crowdsource this. Let me call Gloria.
Hello.
Hey, quick question. I felt like you were the person to ask. They're in his car, right? Whenever she passed out in biology or whatever and he's driving her home. I want him to be listening to like something super douchey or just like some soft indie boy music that she makes fun of him for. Do you have any ideas?
Rex Orange County.
He glared at me. You don't like Rex Orange County? And didn't dignify it with a response. The rain blurred everything outside the window into gray and green smudges. I began to realize we were driving very fast. Let's take that out because it's dumb. The car moved so steadily, so evenly. I didn't feel the speed. Only the town flashing by gave it away. What is your mother like? He asked me suddenly. I glanced over to see him studying me with curious eyes. She's a lot like me, but she's prettier, I said. He raised his eyebrows. I have too much Charlie in me. She's more outgoing than I am and braver. She's irresponsible and slightly eccentric, and she's a very unpredictable cook. I'm gonna put like a very ... unpredictable cook. She's my best friend. I stopped. Talking about her was making me depressed. Okay. How old are you, Bella? His voice sounded frustrated for some reason I couldn't imagine. He stopped the car and I realized we were at Charlie's house already. The rain was so heavy that I could barely see the house at all. It was like the car was submerged under a river. I'm 17, I responded, a little confused. You don't seem 17. His tone was reproachful and it made me laugh. What? He asked, curious again. My mom always said I was born 35 years old and that I get more middle-aged every year. I laughed and then sighed. Well, someone has to be the adult. I paused for a second. You don't seem much like a junior in high school yourself, I noted. He made a face and changed the subject. So why did your mother marry Phil? I was surprised he remembered. Why would remember? I was surprised he remembered the name. I'd mentioned it once, almost 2 months ago. It took me a moment to answer. My mother, ... She's very young for her age. I think Phil makes her feel even younger. At any rate, she's crazy about him. I shook my head. The attraction was a mystery to me. Do you approve? He asked. Does it matter? I countered. Didn't they already have this conversation? I want her to be happy, and he is who she wants. That's very generous. I wonder, he mused. What? Would she extend the same courtesy to you, do you think, no matter who your choice was? He was suddenly very intent, his eyes searching mine. I think so, I stuttered, but she's the parent after all. It's a little bit different. No one too scary then? He teased. I grinned in response. What do you mean by scary? Multiple facial piercings and expensive tattoos? Extensive. I kind of like expensive. Hold on. That's one definition, I suppose. What's your definition? But he ignored my question. Someone who's gonna eat you. But he ignored my question and asked me another. Do you think that I could be scary? He raised one eyebrow and the faint trace of a smile lightened his face. I thought for a moment, wondering whether the truth or a lie would go over better. I decided to go with the truth. I think you could be if you wanted to. Do you think I could be scary? Why would you be scary? I asked in a mock tone voice. Because you consistently kidnap girls? Are you frightening me now? The smile vanished and his heavenly face was suddenly serious. No. I toyed with the knife in my pocket again. So now are you going to tell me about your family? I tried to distract him. It's got to be a much more interesting story than mine. I'm going to take that out. He was instantly cautious. What do you want to know? The Cullens adopted you? I verified. Yes. I hesitated for a moment. What happened to your parents? They died many years ago. His tone was matter of fact. I'm sorry, I mumbled. I don't really remember them that clearly. Carlisle and Esme have been my parents for a long time now. And you love them? It wasn't a question. It was obvious in the way he spoke of them. Yes, he smiled. I couldn't imagine two better people. You're very lucky. I know I am. And your brother and sister? He glanced at the clock on the dashboard. My brother and sister, and Jasper and Rosalie for that matter, are going to be quite upset if they have to stand in the rain waiting for me. Oh, sorry, I guess I have to go. I didn't want to get out of the car. And you probably want your truck back before Chief Swan gets home so you don't have to tell him about the biology incident. He grinned at me. Why would he think that she wanted to keep that a secret? I'm sure he's already heard there are no secrets in Forked, I sighed. He laughed and there was an edge to his laughter. Have fun at the beach. Good weather for sunbathing. He glanced out at the sheeting rain. Won't I see you tomorrow? No, Emmett and I are starting the weekend early. What are you going to do? A friend could ask that, right? I hope the disappointment wasn't too apparent in my voice. I'm going to take that out. And I'm going to take that out, actually. I just don't want Bella to like them that much. We're going to be hiking in the Great Rocks Wilderness just south of Rainier. I remember Charlie had said the Cullens went camping frequently. Oh, well, have fun. I tried to sound enthusiastic. I don't think I fooled him, though. A smile was playing around the edges of his lips. Will you do something for me this weekend? He turned to look me straight in the face, utilizing the full power of his burning gold eyes. I nodded helplessly. Don't be offended, but you seem to be one of those people who just attracts accidents like a magnet, so try not to fall in the ocean or get run over or anything, all right? He smiled crookedly. The helplessness had faded as he spoke. I glared at him. I'll see what I can do, I snapped as I jumped out into the rain. I slammed the door behind me with excessive force. He was still smiling as he drove away. And I lifted my middle finger. The end. Well, I think that's coming along beautifully now that Bella is a biter. Thank you for watching and thank you to my patrons for sponsoring this video. If you would like to read the first 5 chapters of our Twilight rewrite, subscribe to the newsletter linked in the description. Also subscribe to this channel and hit the notification bell if you'd like. Also like this video if you believe that Bella has knife rights. I'll see you next week. Bye.